Beautiful start to this Wednesday morning weather-wise. That's been the case all throughout the week. Appreciate you for joining us. Sam Getzinger filling in for Dom Izzo this week. Very excited for this upcoming conversation here. Gene Taylor, an old friend of ours, joining us here on this Wednesday morning. Former North Dakota State Athletic Director, now the Director of Athletics over at Kansas State. You and Chris Kleiman in town for Roger Maris All-Star Week. How does it feel to be back in town?
Yeah, it's great. It's been a minute. We flew in different times. My wife and I flew in last night. I got into the airport. I'm like, whoa. The airport is awesome.
Yeah, a lot of renovations there.
Yeah, in the cities, that's a beautiful facility. So, it's been a while. I'm trying to remember. I think the last time I was here was for a North Dakota State game a couple of years ago. But it's been a while, so it's good to be back.
I believe we had you on Bison game day that day. I think the last time you were on this show was when Dom was out at the Big 12 Media Days a couple of years ago before North Dakota State and Colorado. So it's great to catch up with you once again. I believe that last time you were in town and we had you on Bison game day, mentioned what are the chances of North Dakota State making it to FBS? And you said hopefully pretty high, and now that's become reality. What was your reaction to that news when that all came down?
I'm just really proud of Matt and everybody that had a part of that. I think it was the right time. Mm-hmm. It was the right move. It was something that they probably had been working on for a while, and it just makes so much sense. And there's a lot of similarities from the time we moved from Division II to Division I, and the reasons behind that for them to go from FCS to FBS. And I'm fortunately on a couple of I'm on the football oversight committee, so I've been able to be a little part of seeing their transition and doing what I can to help. But just really proud of them, and Coach Polasek and his staff will be ready for the move, and I think the fans are probably ready for it as well.
Right. You get some rejuvenation there. Obviously, it's not like things were bad, but when you have success for so long, things can get a little mundane at points, right? Yeah.
And again, it's similar. When we were Division II, a lot of the Division II powerhouses started to move up to FCS. The Northern Iowas and those schools that North Dakota State used to compete against, and then same now. You lose the James Madisons and the App States and. Right. And they've proven what they don't need to prove anymore at the FCS level with the number of championships they've had. And again, I think this move is a perfect move for them and a perfect conference, and they'll have a lot of success early, in my opinion.
Gloria Navarez, the Mountain West commissioner, said the same thing. Just when you look at culture, geography, it is the best fit possible right now. And your knowledge of Mountain West and the FBS, do you feel like North Dakota State could have some success at this level?
Yeah, I do. Obviously, as we know, North Dakota State's had a lot of success against FBS programs over the years. Matter of fact, so much so Matt's having a hard time scheduling. He used to have a hard time scheduling. So I do think. I think, obviously, they're going to have to make some adjustments. I think Polasek and his staff from a recruiting perspective, but they've got a really good team and a really good base to start from. And, one of the things we talked about at the Football Oversight Committee is, if they win 6 games, should they be able to just automatically go ahead and qualify for bowl games so they don't have to go through the waiver process? And I will tell you the Football Oversight Committee is very supportive of that just because not only the type of program they have, but the commitment they're making financially to make the move. Right. And if they win 6 games, absolutely, you should be able to play in a bowl game.
I wanted to ask you about that because that is something North Dakota State fans are waiting on pins and needles for, waiting for the Division I cabinet to put the final say on that. When that hit your guys' meeting rooms, what was the conversation there? And I believe Matt Larson brought this up, that it feels like that rule it just hasn't kept up with the landscape of college football.
Well, a couple of things. I think in some of the earlier transitions, the financial commitment to make that move wasn't there. I think it was $5,000 at one point. And so I think there was some concern, are they really ready to make that move? Well, North Dakota State has a different reputation than some of the schools that have made the move to FCS, to FBS. There was a financial commitment. That was one of the comments in the room. And I actually didn't really speak up because everybody knows my ties, unless I felt I needed to. But everybody in the room was like, well, they're paying $5 million. They're in a conference. If they win 6 games, why would we make them go through the waiver process? And so it was a pretty easy conversation. So we passed it out of the football oversight, and it sits, like you said, now in the cabinet. I think they meet next week.
Okay.
I'm going to certainly talk to our two Big 12 representatives on it and say, let's make sure we support this. So I would be surprised if it doesn't get support, but we'll need to do everything we can to make sure it does.
If that comes to fruition, they win the 6 games or however it is, and they get that bowl eligibility, what's going to be running through your mind if they have the opportunity to play a bowl game this year or even down in the future?
Yeah, I'm excited again for the fan base. The bowls are different. Obviously, the FCS playoffs is tremendous. It was a lot of fun, and the years that I was able to be a part of it, and then being able to watch it over the last few years, making the runs to the championship. But the bowl game is different, but it's a fun experience. It's a fun experience for the fans, and who knows? We saw what James Madison did last year, making the CFP playoff, and those are down the road potentially, but it gives them that opportunity. They're in that level now, and they should. In the quality of program they have, I don't see any reason that they can't be there at some point.
What do you make of Tim Polasek and what he's been able to do up here, seeing it from afar?
I'm not surprised. Yeah. Obviously, known Tim for a long time, from the time he was a GA. Clem and I joke that Tim's life is 4th and 1 at all the time. He's obviously really intense. But he's just a really good football coach, and he gets the culture and what needs to happen here at North Dakota State in terms of how to build it. I think he's been at the FBS level, both at Power 4 and at Wyoming, and had some success as a coordinator. So he's ready. He's proven that he can win wherever he's been. So I think, and I don't know a lot of his staff. Obviously, I know a couple of guys on the staff, but it's certainly a program that has no problem making the transition.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, Gene Taylor, the director of athletics from Kansas State, joining us while he's in town for Roger Maris All-Star Week. One of the topics I wanted to touch on with you, and I know this is something that Dom has been following heavily, is the 5-for-5 rule. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that could be decided next week as well. It's something that has been I feel like altered for a while just to make sure every sport has a say in this, because different sports have different deferred years they can allow before an athlete comes in. What is the update you can give us on this, and what are your thoughts on the 5-for-5 rule?
Yeah, we refer to it right now as the age-based eligibility, because the 5-for-5 again feels like it puts limits on athletes, and we try to stay out of court as much as we can. I think there's a lot of support for it. They've made some adjustments to it recently in terms of, I think it now starts at the 19th birthday and first-time enrollment at any sort of post-secondary education, whether junior college, NAIA. So I think it'll pass. I really do. I think it's something we need. A college athlete needs to be done after 5 years. And the good news about this is instead of a redshirt year, you can play 5. And whether you start in junior college and play 2 years in junior college, you'll have 3 years at the Division I level. And that's a good thing. I think that's one piece we have to fix, and I hope we do, which I think the cabinet will. And I think the other thing, we have to get back to one-time transfer. The multiple transfer years really causes a lot of problems, not only from a eligibility point, because that eventually graduation rates are going to catch up to us.
Yes.
And that's something we have to take a look at, but it's also a massive issue with the NIL and the rev share numbers and agents. But if we get the 5-for-5 or the age-based eligibility passed, that'll be a big first step.
Do you feel like we are heading into a direction here where more structure is coming into the college athletics after everything that happened with NIL and transfer portal?
I think what's happened is we've realized that this thing got out of the station so fast and it was so out of control that we have to go back and put in controls, and that's where the Protect College Sports Act is going to be big. I know it's being talked about, I think, this week in Washington, D.C. I think we have to put some controls back in our business. I mean, we're all for rev share and an athlete making true NIL, real NIL, but we have to get some controls, because right now the attorneys and judges are running our business, and we have to get back and run our own business, because it's still college athletics. They're still here to get an education and get their degree and graduate. If they get the opportunity to play at the next level, great. And while they're here, they should be compensated at a reasonable level, and I think that's one of the things we need to figure out, how to make sure we put some structure to that.
Have you had an opportunity to get your head above water at all with everything between your usual day duties and the committee at all?
It's been fun. I obviously, we've had a lot of excitement changes here at Kansas State this year with a new football coach and basketball coach. Those were certainly not on my bingo card this year, but we got through it. And so, yeah, I mean, I'm fortunate to be able to sit on a couple of committees that I feel like at this point in my career I can have some decent impact, and so it's been fun to be a part of. It keeps you busy, and it's good I enjoy it, and I can at least have a voice now that, at this point in my career I'm not too concerned about my next job. I'm happy to say what I feel, and that's a good thing. So hopefully I can help.
We appreciate that. That's for sure. I want to talk about what's going on at Kansas State and some other stuff here in just a second. But North Dakota State new president is a guy that you are familiar with, in Marshall Stewart. It just seems like the pipeline between Kansas State and North Dakota State just continues to grow. What can you tell us about the new president in town?
Yeah, I actually just saw him yesterday on the flight back into Fargo. So Marshall and I work very closely together at Kansas State. He's on our we call it KSA board. Obviously, he was very instrumental in some. As the KSA board, he budget decisions, all those things. So coaches' contracts. So Marshall and I work very closely together. I was actually on the committee that helped him bring to Kansas State. One of the things that Marshall does really, really well is he understands the legislative side of things in both state and federal. He's really good at that. Some of the dollars that he and his staff have been able to bring in to Kansas State since he's been there has been tremendous, and dollars that we haven't been able to bring before. So he understands that side of being the president. I think his demeanor and how he approaches things will be. He's a very easy guy to get to know, very easy guy to work with. He understands athletics, understands the importance of athletics. His wife, Jan, is phenomenal. So I think they'll be a great fit in Fargo, and I'm excited for him because I know that's what he wanted to do eventually. And when I heard he was one of the candidates, I was very happy for him and North Dakota State as well.
Yeah, it comes at an interesting time for him. This is a big time in North Dakota State history. President Cook did a great job of.
Yeah, President Cook and he's now in the Big 12, so I get a chance to work with him. So
exactly. Wish the best of luck to President Stewart and all that he can do. But this is a big spot, to come into, isn't it?
It really is, and obviously, as a president. Got a lot of irons in the fire. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on. When I sit down and talk to our president in Kansas State and realize, my little world of athletics is just a small piece of what he does. But I think Marshall's capable of handling it, and I think he's ready to handle it. But he will be, I think, a great fit here in Fargo and for North Dakota State.
That's great to hear. Gene Taylor joining us on this Wednesday morning. Let's pause. When we come back, more I want to touch on with Gene while he's here, including the Brendan Sorsby situation and also some stuff happening at Kansas State. So let's take a break here on this Wednesday morning. More to come when we come back on WDAY Extra. Welcome back to this Wednesday morning edition of Hot Mic on WDAY Extra. Gene Taylor in studio with us to help get us through the middle of the week here. Great to have you on once again in town for Roger Maris All-Star Week. There has been one story that has dominated the news cycle for a couple of months now, and coming out of the Big 12, that's your territory, and that's the Brendan Sorsby gambling saga. And it's been an instance that you've been outspoken on, and we've somewhat come to a resolution.
I like the way it's outspoken.
Made some national headlines on this not too long ago. Somewhat of a resolution here. He's applying for the NFL supplemental draft. What is your take on all this?
Well, obviously, I think I was out at our national convention in Las Vegas, the NACDA convention, we call it, and when it broke. And I would say in college athletics and in general, this world of sport, the one thing we all can agree on is you cannot bet on your own sport. Mm-hmm. And in collegiate athletics, we have a rule: you can't bet on any sport that is sponsored by the NCAA. And the fact that, he admittedly had done that and sought an injunction, and the judge gave that to him, was really, really frustrating. And so for us in the industry, to know that there was a guy by the name of Pete Rose who can't get in the Hall of Fame because of what he did, that a judge is going to allow, and this wasn't about Brendan himself.
Right.
He's admitted he's got a problem. Good for him for speaking up and figuring it out, and good for Texas Tech to support him in this recovery phase, which is really important. We all do that with all of our athletes, whether it's drug abuse or whatever. We need to do everything we can, but this particular issue, for him to get an injunction to continue to play, was really, really frustrating. Now, fortunately, obviously, as a Big 12, we reacted. I think our commissioner and our presidents and chancellor did it the right way. We didn't overreact. We sat down, and they took a step back, found out the best path to go. In the meantime, I'm still sure they were talking to Texas Tech about, guys, you sure you want to keep doing this? Mm-hmm. And the other frustrating thing is Tech kept kind of doubling down on it, in our opinion, and instead of stepping up and saying, okay, let's rethink this. So now at this point, he's admitted he's going to go to the supplemental draft, and we'll see. Apparently, there's still some things that could derail that. I don't know. But it just was really frustrating that a judge could see that this was the right move for college athletics and any sport across the country, because that's the one thing we all agree on. And it was loud. And I don't want to make it about him, because it's a bigger issue than. And if there other judges were to allow this to happen, it could really cause major issues across not only college athletics but across the industry as a whole.
It's just a slippery slope when you talk about gambling and athletes gambling. Jeff Kolpak and I talked about this week, even not just gambling on the collegiate level, but for those gambling on the professional level, there's insider information that could be passed along. Yeah. These guys all know each other. There's a precedent there that was in jeopardy. Is that fair to say?
Absolutely, and we've seen it at all levels. We've seen many athletes that have been punished and not been able to play and continue to play, and we've even had it in our own conference with Iowa State having to have issues and release players and even staff for that matter. So that's the frustrating thing is that we had a judge who obviously had ties to Texas Tech, and I think let his loyalties get in the way of what I think was a pretty clear-cut decision. And again, had that been able to continue, or if they would have been able to play this year if he hadn't chosen to go to the supplemental draft, it would have been a real challenge for the industry as a whole.
Absolutely. I liked in the filing there was a quote that said, in an industry where not a lot of people agree on everything, this is a topic where everybody agrees on. The resolution to this, where eventually they said, okay, Brendan Sorsby's not going to play, he's going to apply for the supplemental draft. Was that kind of the best case scenario in your mind?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it would have been the best case scenario. It would have been if Texas Tech would have said, whatever, but they didn't. And I get it. I mean, they feel like we've got to support him, through as much as they can. But yeah, I think it's the best case, and I'm guessing that he'll get drafted. I think there's still some nuances within the supplemental draft of what can maybe potentially not. I don't know enough about it yet to what are the rules within that, but if he gets drafted, then fine. I still think he has a long road ahead of him. Mm-hmm. He still has to recover. He still has a major issue that he's dealing with from an addiction standpoint. And if he recovers and manages it, then he'll probably have a pretty good NFL career. If he doesn't, he'll have a very short NFL career.
Right. It's unfortunate that a young guy like that will essentially have that cloud looming over him, but at a point, you got to know right is right and wrong is wrong in these situations.
Right.
And from a Big 12 standpoint, what comes next now?
Well, I think, like I said, our commissioner, Brett Yormark, and our presidents and chancellors really managed that extremely well. Very proud of them, how they came to the resolution about going to the federal court. I think right now that's the next step. We had a meeting yesterday or Monday, I believe it was, about what are the next steps. And I think for now we just have to wait and see. The lawsuit is still in the federal courts. We're not going to pull that back from what I understand, and just wait to see, does he ultimately get drafted? Mm-hmm. If he doesn't, what happens if he doesn't get drafted, or for some reason the supplemental draft doesn't happen? So I think there's still some questions out there, but for right now, we've as a conference made our statement. We've filed the lawsuit, and we'll just see where it goes from there.
Okay. Thank you for sharing your thoughts on that. I was very curious. It's a topic everybody's been talking about for the last couple of months now. I want to talk about some stuff happening at Kansas State before we let you go. Of course, Chris Kleiman, he's up here for Roger Maris All-Star Week as well. He announced his retirement last year, and I know that was an emotional deal for sure, but he's back as an advisor role. Is that correct?
Yeah, he's great. Obviously, coaches, I don't think he's regretted the decision. He's doing a lot of stuff for me from the committees that I sit on. We met again Monday and just talked about some of the stuff upcoming with the Football Oversight Committee. And then, I think he's just going to take a step back from football for the next few months and then see what happens when football season's over. But he's happy, he's relaxed, loving life, and he's a very talented football coach, but he's also very talented at a lot of other things, and he could do whatever he wants.
Absolutely.
When the time comes.
He deserves some time off. There's no doubt about that. You guys went and got Colin Klein to replace his spot. That's a name that college football fans remember. That's a pretty big name. What do you look forward to seeing him?
Yeah, like I tell people, if I messed that higher up, I'd be in big trouble. I just like the way Colin approaches things. He's a favored son in Manhattan and Kansas State. He obviously had a great career, and I think if he coaches and he was there as an offensive coordinator, so there's so much familiarity, particularly with him and Avery, our quarterback. I think there's a potential for a lot of success down the road, but it's the first-time head coach. But we'll support him. But I think his runway is going to be pretty long at Kansas State with the fan base because they love him. They really do. He's just a wonderful person. He and Kleiman are really cut out of the same mold, the type of person they are and the type of coach and how they treat their athletes. And to me, that's really important.
Avery Johnson's a pretty good player, isn't he?
Yeah, he's a really good guy. Yeah. He really is, and he's a really good player. So their connection should help a lot this year.
That's good to hear. Outside of the football program, what else is going on in Kansas State athletics?
Well, obviously got a new basketball coach as well. He's come in and done a nice job. We'll see how the season is for him, but right now, just kind of working through a lot of our business right now and trying to adjust to the rapid change that we face in the industry from a day-to-day basis and doing everything we can to stay competitive. The dollar amount keeps going up, and we need to keep figuring out a way to find those dollars, and that's probably the biggest challenge right now is finding the dollars to stay competitive right now.
Right. Gene, I appreciate you coming on and putting the word cap on. I know it's a fun week, and
that's fun. I'm happy to be here. It's good to be back.
Probably don't want to talk about work all the time. I'll let you enjoy the rest of the week with the Roger Maris All-Star Week, and it was great to have you on. I appreciate that.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. Good to see you guys.
Yeah, good to see you too. Gene Taylor, the Director of Athletics at Kansas State, joining us here on this Wednesday morning. We'll take a break. When we come back, we'll continue our Big 12 conversation. Baylor Dinger will join us, talk about her commitment to Utah. That's coming up next.